Tonight's share has been very kindly sponsored. Lino Nishmas Reb Shalom Chaim ben Reb Nachum Neshama Shehaven Aliyah. A number of years ago, there was a family, Lo Aleinu, that lost a 5-year-old daughter. Approximately 5 years after that time, they had a chasana in the mishpacha. One of the children, the sons, was getting married, and the simcha was a gavaldige simcha, but it was missing something. And you could feel it tangibly, you could feel that something in the simcha was missing. That this 5-year-old daughter that had died 5 years ago, that would today be 10 years old, dancing at the chasana, was missing, she wasn't there. And everyone was imagining, what would she have looked like, what would she have worn? It made the simcha very much incomplete. Rabbi say, if we look around at what Klal Yisrael has, we have everything. We can learn Torah, we can daven, we've got chesed organizations, gemachim all over the world, people doing chesed, people sending their children to yeshivas, people going to kollel, girls going to Beis Yaakov. It's unbelievable. There's so much going on in Klal Yisrael, but we're missing something. And if we don't feel that we're missing something, then we kind of miss the boat. You know, when you go to a chasana, it's almost difficult to know who are the good friends of the chasan. You walk into the hall of the chasana, you walk in, you want to see who are the good friends of the chasan. Who's the good friends? Who are his roommates? Who are his chavusas? Who are his good friends? It's very hard by a chasana. Okay, sometimes the inner circle of the people are closest, but it's sometimes difficult. Everyone's dancing all over the place, there's a simcha, it's hard to know. When it comes to a levaya, Rahman al-Islam, it's very simple to know who are the family members. Within a few seconds you can figure out who's a close member of family, who's a good friend, a relative, and who's just coming in just to be nice, to pay their respects. So Rav Shimshon Pinkus Zatzal, when it comes to the Yomim Tovim around the year, it's very easy to be b'simcha. It's very easy to be a chelik of the simcha, of a yontif, of something that we enjoy, something that's b'simcha, something that's enjoyable, that we get hana from it. But look at Rav Shimshon Pinkus, when it comes to a time like Tisha B'av, and it comes to a time where we have to be mis'abel on Yerushalayim, now we see the connection. Now we see if a person was really be'emes connected to the Rabbeinu Shloim, he had that relationship, or maybe he's missing something, and today's the day that he can repair it. Today's the day that he can make up that relationship. There's an unbelievable and very famous Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi in Yuma, in the beginning of Perek Aleph, says the Yerushalmi, Kol Shaloi Nivni Beis HaMikdash B'Yomav Ki'ilu Rechrivu. That means that if the Beis HaMikdash was not built in your days, if you were not alive when the Beis HaMikdash was built, Zuk Chazal Mefurish Yerushalmi, it's Ki'ilu, it was destroyed in your times. Explains the Sfas Emes, an unbelievable yesod. The Sfas Emes in Dvorim Tofreish Lamed Daled explains like this, and he says, I don't understand, if you go through the generations, the Torah and the Tefillah that our Tanoim, our Maroyim, our tzaddikim all offered, and they didn't have the Beis HaMikdash built in their days. What does it mean? I understand us as the Sfas Emes, but how can you say this on the Gedolim and tzaddikim of previous generations that was so almost malach-like? What does this mean? Explains the Sfas Emes an unbelievable thing. Says the Sfas Emes, it means like this. The Sfas Emes is telling us that every single person can contribute towards the building of the Beis HaMikdash. And if while you were alive, you personally did absolutely nothing to positively contribute towards the building of the Beis HaMikdash, then it's ki'ilu, it was destroyed in your days. There's an obligation, there's a chiyuv in every single one of us to be mis'abel on Yerushalayim be'etzem every single day of the year. During the year it's difficult for us, but perhaps one day a year we can set aside, and that's our obligation. And it's such an obligation as a Sfas Emes, if we don't do it, at least today, then it's Ki'ilu the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed in our times. Ki'ilu Kaviyochel, we were able to see the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. There's an amazing Chassam Sofer. This week's Parashas Dvarim. The Chassam Sofer quotes the pasuk in Tehillim, Kuf Mem Zayin, Boinei Yerushalayim Hashem Nidchei Yisrael Lachanes. Asks the Chassam Sofer an amazing thing. He says, why does it use the Lashon? Why does David HaMelech use in Tehillim, Boinei Yerushalayim, in the future? What does that mean? The builder of Yerushalayim in the future. Says the Chassam Sofer like this. The Chassam Sofer says, and he quotes a pasuk in Yeshaya, that every single krachts, every sigh, every little mourning that you do, every tefillah, every tehillim, whatever you do today on the day of Tisha B'av, is a day that positively builds. You have a chelik of being Boinei Yerushalayim, says the Chassam Sofer. When you come along today and you're interested and you want and you try to get into it and it's difficult, but you try the best. That, says the Chassam Sofer, is the only way. We find the time of the 3 weeks to almost be a very hard time to connect. It's a very hard time to connect to the Churban Beis HaMikdash. We don't feel anything. We never saw pictures of it. We never knew anyone that knew anyone that knew anyone that saw it. It's very hard to get connected. The halachas, we can almost find a heter for everything. That means until tonight, you could have basically got away with doing nothing. You could have listened to a siyum every single day of the 9 days and eaten meat. You could have said, I'm a finicky person, I have to have a shower every single day and it has to be hot. You're exercising, so I need to listen to music. I can pretty much find a heter for everything. So you come to Tisha B'av, you almost did nothing to be misabel on Yerushalayim. Okay, could be. Comes today. Comes the day of Tisha B'av. The day that we are meant to, and there's a chiv, an obligation on every single Yid in Klal Yisrael to be misabel on Yerushalayim. There's no heterim. There's nothing you can get out of. This is a mufurish halacha. It's a chiv in Chazal that we have to do, so much so that if we don't do it, Chazal tell us terrible things. But if we do it, we're zoicha, say Chazal, the Gemara, we're zoicha to be able to be royev simchasa. We're going to see the simcha participate in the gavaldige simcha. It's an amazing thing. We find over here that Tisha B'av, we're not dealing with just an obligation that we have to be misabel today, but rather the geula depends on it. What we're going to do today could have a direct effect to how quickly the geula is going to come. And there's no eitzah, no siyum, no heta, no kula is going to get you out of being misabel on Yerushalayim. It's something that the Sfarim HaKadoshim bring in be'etzim, in the inside of every Yid's neshama. It's there. We have to bring it out. We have to try and seek it out to be able to feel it. That spark that's desperate for the Geula, that spark that's waiting to see the Giloi HaShechina, the Beis HaMikdash, and everything that comes together with that. How do we do it? That's the question. How do we do it? The Torah doesn't say, you know what, just try your best. And if you don't manage, it's okay. We'll excuse you. We understand where you're coming from. We know the generation. We understand. We get it. No. Chazal tell us every generation has the same obligation as the generation before it, and there's no excuses. That we have to be misabel on Yerushalayim. What does the Rebbeinu Shalom want from us? We can almost say we're a tinnik shenishba. What do we want from us? We're almost like a tinnik shenishba. We were kidnapped at a young age. We have no idea what the Beis HaMikdash would have looked like, what it was like to live with the Beis HaMikdash. Imagine the Kahanim and the Avodim and the Karbonis. We don't know. So what do you want from us? What does the Rebbeinu Shalom want at this moment on Tisha B'av for us to be feeling? What does He want us to be expressing? What are we meant to be accomplishing? If Chazal are telling us that every single one of us have to do this, then obviously it's an obligation. And not only is it an obligation, obviously we can do it. Obviously it's possible for every single one of us to reach into the inner depths of ourselves and understand on our specific level what we're meant to be doing today and how we can possibly feel the actual Churban. There was a chassid that came to his Rebbe, and he comes into his Rebbe, knocks on the door, he wants to stay there for Shabbos, to be together with his Rebbe. The Rebbetzin opens the door, sensing that his fellow was waiting for an invitation. She says, listen, you're welcome to stay here, I have no problem. But I must tell you, we have nothing to give you. We have absolutely nothing. We have a few little scraps of chicken, a few little pieces and crumbs of challah. We have nothing to give you. You're welcome to stay here, but I can't offer you anything. So the man says, well, here's your lucky day. was a very wealthy fellow. He pulled out from his pocket a gold coin, said, it's early, it's still Erev Shabbos, got plenty of time to run to the marketplace. Take this gold coin and buy whatever you need. She was overjoyed to have a Shabbos Kodesh. That's incredible. And he spends a Shabbos with the Rebbe. What a Shabbos it was. But he noticed that the aniyas, the poverty that this man, this Rebbe was going through, he Pasha couldn't take it. His bed wasn't called a bed. The food that he had on a normal Shabbos was terrible. His house was falling in. He couldn't bear it. But this was a Yid that gave brachos that were mekayim to everyone that came to him. Motzei Shabbos, he turns to the Rebbe. He says, Rebbe, I don't understand. You give brachos, and your brachos come true. Why can't you daven to the Rabbeinu Shalom that you should have more money? Why can't you daven to the Rabbeinu Shalom that he should give you a little bit more gashmias so you'll be able to live? And the Rebbe turns to him and says, I want to tell you a story that happened in a town not too far away from here. One of the leaders of the community in this town, his name was Reb Herschel. Reb Herschel was a very wealthy, very influential person, and he was making his chasna for his one and only daughter. And this was going to be a chasna that was going to be like none other. Everyone in town was excited. The preparations were starting weeks and weeks ahead for this chasna, the hall, the lights that went up, everything started to have preparations going closer and closer. And even the poor people in town were very excited. Even the aniyim were excited. Number one, they were going to get a gavaldige suda. They were going to have a meal, which was going to be amazing. And Reb Herschel also promised them. Reb Herschel told them, every oni that comes over here is going to get 100 rubles. He's going to get 100 rubles, which was a fortune of money. The aniyim were so excited to get to this chasna. Gavaldik here, they were going to go to the chasna not only when they're going to get a good meal the first time and who knows when, but also they were going to be able to walk out with a tremendous amount of money. Comes the morning of the chasna. Everyone was waiting for this day. The anticipation, the excitement of the day was built up. Everyone was waiting for the moment of the chasna. The morning of the chasna came. And the town woke up to the unthinkable. The color had died overnight. The color had died overnight. Can you imagine? I'm just trying to understand what happened. The doctors came in. She was unconscious. Before they knew it, it was all over. It was all over. They didn't know what to say. This was the chasana that everyone was waiting for. And what was meant to be the greatest simcha turned into the greatest tragedy. Everyone was heartbroken. And all the organizers of the chasana started to dismantle the chasana. Obviously there's not going to be a simcha. And instead of walking his daughter to the chuppah, he walked his daughter to her final resting place, to the kvura. And you can imagine when he came back from the kvura, the olim were trying to be menachem oval. It was such a difficult time. It was so hard for him to be able to do that, to be able to focus. His whole life had just changed overnight. What was meant to be the greatest simcha in his life turned into the greatest tragedy. It was terrible. It was terrible. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the shiva, and the olim are crying, the olim are feeling, suddenly this wealthy fellow gets a tug from one of the sides of his jacket. There's a poor man there who says, excuse me, where's the money? I came to the chasana. I'm waiting for the money. The people over there couldn't believe the audacity. Everyone was shocked. The place went into silence. How could you ask for such a thing at a time like this? How can you ask for such a thing like this? How can you ask for such a thing like this at a time of such tsar? Said this Rebbe to this chassid, when the Rabbeinu Shalom has so much tsar that there's no Beis HaMikdash, when the Rabbeinu Shalom is kaviyachol crying that there's no Beis HaMikdash, I'm going to ask for more gashmias. I'm going to ask for something that I personally need. No. And that's what the Rebbe taught that chassid. It's not about ourselves. It's about the tsar of the Shechina, the tsar of the Rabbeinu Shalom. There's an unbelievable, incredible medrash. Listen to this medrash. It's a medrash in the beginning of Parshas Bereshis, where the medrash goes on the pasuk V'ruach Elokim Marcheves Al Penei Hamayim. That's whatever that means. Translate, the spirit of the Rabbeinu Shalom was on the waters. In fact, the medrash, what does that mean? What waters? There were no waters at that time. Says the Medrash, you know what it means? It means the waters of tears over Churban Beis HaMikdash. We know that there is no singular word for the word mayim in Hebrew. There is no singular for water. Everything is mayim because there's always in plural. Because whenever we cry, the Rabbeinu Shalom also cries. And therefore says the Medrash, the Rabbeinu Shalom already at the beginning of Maaseh Bereshis was Kaviyachol crying over the Churban Beis HaMikdash. And that's something that we have to think about at this moment. When a father watches his son cry, a father sees his own child cry, what does he do? The father tries to console his son. Says the Radomsker Rebbe, Gewaldige Yesod, what happens if both of them are crying? What happens if both the father and the son are crying? So then if the son is a good son, said the Radomsker Rebbe, the son will put away his feelings, his problems, his issues, and he'll try to comfort the father. Says the Radomsker Rebbe, comes Tisha B'av. We all have tzoros. We look at the world and we see what's going on in the world. We look back at the year. If only we could look back at the year and see the year from last Tisha B'av to this Tisha B'av. I don't believe we honestly believed that last Tisha B'av we would be sitting here a year forward at another Tisha B'av, crying over the Churban Beis HaMikdash with the tzoros that we've seen. How many people have lost children? How many people have Rachmana Litzlan committed suicide? How many people have lost their jobs, got divorced, still looking for a wife, looking for a baby? There are tzoros in the world, and everything comes from one yesod, and that is the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So the Radomsker Rebbe, when we look at the crying that be'etzem we really want to cry for, we have to stop for a moment and cry for the Rabbeinu Shalom. We have to cry for the tsar of the Shechina, that the Rabbeinu Shalom is crying that he doesn't have a Beis HaMikdash, that he doesn't have a mokaim to reside in, a mokaim HaShechina. Reb Shabtai Delevich, Zatzal, to the Mordechai Yesod. And I think from this Yesod we can maybe bring out something a bit more lemaisa. How can we feel the Churban today? In the next 24 hours, what are we going to do to be able to feel the Churban? Out of all the Tanoim, we're familiar with many of the names, but the name Rabbi Akiva stands out amongst many. Rabbi Akiva, if we go through, and I'll give you a few examples, through Mamorei Chazal, Rabbi Akiva was what we look at as someone that's a man of steel that was able to cope with everything. He was able to take all of life's challenges. Let me give you a few examples. At the end of Masechtas Makos, the Gemara famously tells us about Rabbi Akiva who was walking with his friends, and they heard the sound of the Roman Empire, the empire that eventually destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. And he heard them singing, and he heard them laughing, they heard them being joyful. And they started to cry. The Olam started to cry. This is the Roman Empire that's going to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. The Olam started to cry. Zuk Chazar, Rabbi Akiva started to laugh. Why was he laughing? I'm not going through now the whole Gemara, but he was laughing for one reason. He was laughing because if this is what happens, if this is the simcha of how someone celebrates when he's a Rasha, then can you imagine, can you imagine when Klal Yisrael do the Ratzon Hashem? Can you imagine how much more b'simcha we should be? Rabbi Akiva, at a time like that, when they heard the Roman Empire that was going to come and destroy the Beis HaMikdash, Rabbi Akiva found a light. He found something positive. Next, the Gemara tells us, again, the Gemara Makos, that they passed by the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and there was a fox coming out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and all the Tanoim and everybody started to cry. And once again, Rabbi Akiva starts to smile, he starts to laugh. And they said, Rabbi Akiva, why are you laughing? And he said, because you know why? It's a simon. It's a simon that Geula is coming. If the fox is coming out, it means that there's Geula. He found a way to make something positive. And one more example, something that we're going to talk about and speak and hear about tomorrow, the Kinnis, where we talk about the Sarugei Malchus, and we hear about how Rabbi Akiva tells us the Medrash so clearly the exact gruesome details. Then Rabbi Akiva was about to die. His skin was combed with a metal iron, with a metal comb. You can imagine we feel a bit of pain when we touch the top of a needle. Rabbi Akiva's skin was being peeled off with a metal comb. A terrible, unimaginable tzara. And yet, what happened? Rabbi Akiva is saying Kriya Shema and he's smiling. He's happy. He's positive. The Rishonim said, Rabbi Akiva, what's the matter with you? This is not a time to smile. This is not a time to be happy, to be b'simcha. You're about to leave the world in a horrible, painful way. And Rabbi Akiva said, what do you mean? I've waited my entire life for this moment. When I say in Kriya Shema b'chol nafshecha, this is what I meant. And I'm happy, I'm b'simcha that I'm able to give up my life for the Rabbeinu Shalom b'kiddush Hashem. Rabbi Akiva, 3 places, and there's many, many more examples, that a man of steel was able to cope with every tragedy, with every sorrow, with every situation, by always looking at the positive. Except for one time. And that is the Gemara in Nozech of Gimel, where the Gemara tells us about our same Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was reading the pasuk about a woman that made a neder. She made a neder and her husband had matir the neder. That means that her husband had annulled that neder that his wife made. But she didn't know about it. She had no idea that that neder was something that was actually yes chal or not chal. She assumed it was. She had no idea that her husband had annulled the vow. And the Gemara tells us over there, Rabbi Akiva was reading about the pasuk, and the Rabbeinu Shalom Hashem Yislach Lo asked to give her a kapara. Rabbi Akiva started to cry. All of a sudden, this Rabbi Akiva, this same Rabbi Akiva that was able to look at the Churban Beis HaMikdash, that was able to die in the most terrible, tragic way, all of a sudden was smiling. All of a sudden was breaking down. Why? Because of a woman that didn't even do an Aveira. Just thought she did an Aveira. And therefore she needed a kapara. So Rabbi Akiva over here is teaching us the most unbelievable idea. And that idea that Rabbi Akiva is able to go through the Churban Beis HaMikdash and smile and be positive. But the moment it came to an Aveira, the moment it came to an Aveira that causes a richuk, a distance, a separation, a severance between us and the Rabbeinu Shalom, this Rabbi Akiva couldn't cope with. This Rabbi Akiva couldn't take anymore. And here he started to cry. Because over here he understood, Rabbi Akiva understood that an Aveira distances a person more than the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Maybe we could use this to answer ourselves today, tonight, and tomorrow, the next 24 hours. What are we meant to be mourning? What are we meant to be thinking about? The answer is maybe not the physical structure. Maybe not the stones and the bricks and the wood and the beautiful marble and everything that the Beis HaMikdash represented. But maybe it's more than that. And that is our relationship, our richuk, our distance. Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen says, that's why it's so interesting. A sword, it's called a cherev, it's called a sword. Why? Because when you slice something, it makes a separation. Churban, says Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen, is b'loshen cherev. Churban comes from cherev, it's a sword, it makes a separation. And therefore when we do an Aveira, we're so distant from the Rabbeinu Shalom, we don't have an opportunity to be able to serve the Rabbeinu Shalom in the same way that they could have done when they had a Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky Zatzal says, picture the scene. There's a Beis HaMikdash. You're in Chutz La'aretz. Shabbos Kodesh. There's a salad in front of you. And this salad has cucumbers and tomatoes. You don't like cucumbers, so you take the cucumbers out. Boira on Shabbos. Imagine there's a Beis HaMikdash. Oh no, I just did Boira. V'mezid b'shoyich chaystish, whatever, you did Boira. What do I do now? You book a flight to Eretz Yisrael. You land in Eretz Yisrael, you start looking to find an animal. You bring it up to Yerushalayim. Vido, the whole business. What did I do already? I took a little cucumber out of a salad. That's Naveira. There's a richut, there's a distance, you need to make it up. You need to kapara. We don't have a Beis HaMikdash. So what happens now? The same Aveira. It's probably okay. Yeah, I think I heard once ahead, so I think one of the Rabbonim, I think, allow it maybe. It's probably okay. It's not so bad. The Rabbonon, whatever, I'm allowed to eat it. We lost that. We lost that connection. We lost that connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom that we had when we had a Beis HaMikdash. Maybe that's our job today. Maybe our job today is not to mourn the physical structure that's too hard for us. We're Tinik Shenishma, we can't do that. We don't understand it. It doesn't mean anything to us. But what does mean something to us is the relationship. What means something to us is that relationship to the Rabbeinu Shalom, is that connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom that we just don't have. The Malbim says That we could do whatever you want, but we're missing the heart. So the Malbim says it before, we're missing the lave of Klal Yisrael. And he says that's where we're missing something. If we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, the Beis HaMikdash was the heart, it was the lave of Klal Yisrael. We can have all of the Torah, all of the Gavaldige mitzvahs, all the tefillah in the world, but we're missing the lave of Klal Yisrael. And maybe today, in a day like Tisha B'av, where we don't have the regular Torah, we're not able to learn in the regular way, we're able maybe to concentrate on this Nakuda. We're able to concentrate, to do some spiritual CPR on ourselves and go deep within ourselves and think about the relationship that we have with the Rabbeinu Shalom. What are we missing? We just read Eicha, we know Eicha the Balatanya, everyone says this. Eicha comes from the word Ayeka, where are you? Or the Marishim was asked this question by the Rabbeinu Shalom and many others as well. Ayeka, where are you in the world? How have you fallen so badly? Where are you when you're meant to be davening? Where are you when you're meant to be learning? Where are you not physically, but emotionally, Lemaisa? Where's the connection? Where's that connection with us and the Rabbeinu Shalom? Even when we do a mitzvah, that's what we're missing. And that is what we are trying to bring out and think about and mourn today in the next 24 hours. Who we are, who we're meant to be, who the Rabbeinu Shalom created, and how far we've fallen. The son of the Sfas Emes, Reb Mendele, was in Auschwitz. And he had a bunch of Hasidim around him, and he taught them the sugya of Kiddush Shem Shamayim. What it means to die al Kiddush Hashem. They went through the sugya be'in, and they were holding in the sugya. And just as they'd finished the sugya, the Nazis in Shemam rounded them up and took them in the direction of the gas chambers. Now most Yidden went to the gas chambers, they didn't do it willingly, they didn't do it b'simcha, they did it because they had no choice. These Yidden had just been with their Rebbe, Remendra, the son of the Sfas Emes. They had been through the sugya of Kiddush Shem Shamayim. They were excited to Mekayim the mitzvah, Behida Gemura. And they started jumping up and down on the way to the gas chambers. Can you imagine the scene? The Nazis in Machshon were so upset. Here they were trying to crush Klal Yisrael down. And you've got this group of Jews that are happily walking in. Just as they got to the gates, or they got to the entrance of the gas chambers, they broke out in a dance. They just started dancing. No one could stop them. The Nazis, I'd never seen anything like this. A group of Jews dancing like it was Simchas Torah. They mamish felt it was Simchas Torah, right at the entrance of the gas chambers. And they couldn't stop them. They weren't interested in it anyway. You can do whatever you want for me, what's the difference? I'm dead anyway. The Nazis couldn't stop them. So they came up with a plan. How were we going to stop these Jews? They went to the makeshift hospital in the concentration camp, and they took a young baby, a young Yiddish baby that had just been born. And they took this Yiddish baby and they threw the Yiddish baby in the middle of the circle. Everyone stopped. We're not trampling a Yiddish baby. They stopped dancing, everything froze. Reb Mendele came and he took this young little baby and he held up the baby and he said, Rabbi, I want to ask the Olam Akasha. How do you know if how does the son know if the son is doing a good job? In the sun, if doing a good job, how does he know if he's doing a good job? The answer is very simple. When everybody walks outside and everyone's squinting, no one can see, he's bright. Okay, then the sun knows he's done a good job. So with Mendele, how does a Yid know that he's doing a good job? We have Tzelem Elokim. Every single Yid has powerful Tzelem Elokim. When the Goyim cannot stand to look at a Yid in the face, that means we're doing a good job. It means we still have our Tzelem Elokim. And that's what we were created with. And that's what we have to utilize. And we have to dig deep tonight and tomorrow to see where it's gone. How far we've sunk. Ayeka, where are we? What are we doing? One of the Jewish police officers, a Jew in the concentration camp, said over an unbelievable account of one of his experiences allowing Jews to come in to the gas chambers. You can imagine what sorrow that was, but he said eventually we just became numb. We didn't even think about it anymore. It wasn't something that we felt. We had no emotions. There were no more tears. It was gone. We just filed everybody in. We did our job. It's what we had to do. We had no choice. And he said there was one particular story out of all the time that he was there, the months and months that he led Jews into the gas chambers. There was one experience that he said he just never forgot. And that was a young girl. A young girl was told that she's going to the shower room. So she took with her some belongings and she took with her her little doll. little ragdoll doll that she was very connected to. And she took it with, and she was all excited. She's going to have a shower, and then she's going to come back. She folded her clothes, put it in the entrance, and she put the doll on top of it, ready to come back afterwards. Obviously, she never did. But there was a young boy in the line behind. And when he saw that doll, he got so excited. Wow, this is unbelievable. A doll. When was the last time I saw a toy? When was the last time I saw something childlike, a little young boy? And he picked it up and he gave it a hug, and this guard started to cry. Little does this boy know who it belonged to and where he's about to go. And the guard said at that moment that was the greatest day of his life, but the most painful day of his life. It was the most painful day of his life, having to realize properly what people are going through, but it was also the happiest day of his life, because he realized he had some emotions. He realized there was something still left within him that he was able to feel. Maybe that's us. Maybe that's us. On a day like today, Tisha B'av, we don't really feel the Churban Beis HaMikdash. We don't really connect to what we're missing. But there must be something that we can dig deep within us. When we say the Kinnis, when we sit at home, when we close our eyes and think, what would our relation be like if we had a Beis HaMikdash? What would happen? What would our relationship be? What would our connection be? It would change everything. One of the biggest insults you can give someone is, I have no time for you. The greatest insult you can do. Imagine a young couple where the husband runs in from work. He runs in and he runs up the stairs and she says, no, but I've made you supper. He says, don't worry, I bought you a present. He takes a box out of his pocket, a diamond bracelet. He jumps it on the table and runs upstairs. I have a meeting, I have to run out. Wow, diamond bracelet. But you have no time. The greatest insult you can give someone is, I have no time for you. How much time do we have for the Rabbeinu Shalom? How much time do we have for the relationship between us and the Rabbeinu Shalom? That's the question. That's Tisha B'av. That's today. That relationship that we have to build. It's been severed. It's been distance. There's so much going on. We lead busy lives. Who has time to think? But today, when we can't wear our shoes, which is what specifically connects us to Olam Hazeh, connects us to the Gashmias, we don't have that connection. Today, we're not eating, we're not drinking, no shoes. All the hanas that take us out of thinking, out of concentration, we're able now to focus on what we're meant to be focusing on. The Baal Shem, Mechelstadt, lived in Germany in the 1800s. And he talks about a famous young boy, a genius of a boy, a genius of a boy. Everyone knew, was widespread. Everyone knew that this boy was an absolute genius. And there was a famous, very wealthy, powerful count that also lived there. And he also heard about this young genius. And he said, you know, I want to meet him. He sent a horse and wagon with two of his officers and said, bring me this boy. I need to see him. Two conditions. Condition number one, don't tell him what I want from him. And condition number two, don't tell him where I am in the palace. He's going to have to find me. Okay, so they go. This poor young Jewish boy told that the count wants to see you. You have no choice. The count wants you, you go. So he got into the horse and cart, makes the journey over to the palace. He gets to the palace. He doesn't know why he's there. And even more so, he doesn't even know how to find the count. He looks outside the building. Huge building, windows, doors, entrances, all over the place. Where do I start? He makes a calculation. He's a clever boy. He goes in one of the entrances, goes up the stairs 2 floors, turns right, makes a left, knocks on the door. The count opens the door, says, how did you know? How did you know I was here? How did you find me? Listen to his answer. He says, I looked at all the windows. I checked all the windows outside. And every single window, the curtains were open, except for one. One had the curtains were closed. And that means that you were obviously hiding in that place. This is the Baal Shem in Mechelstadt. The Rabbeinu Shalom is hiding. The Rabbeinu Shalom is hiding in a place and waiting for us to seek him. He's waiting for us to try and seek him out, because he's waiting for that connection, for that relationship, and we will then get the Geula, we'll then get the Beis HaMikdash, but we have to do our part. Tonight and tomorrow and the next 24 hours is our part. It's what we have to do to be able to try to connect, to try to concentrate, and try and build that relationship. And I'll end with this. When Rebbetzin Jacobowitz, the wife of the late Chief Rabbi of London, when she was nifta. So after the kvura, 4 of her daughters returned to the house, and they came back to the house to sit shiva, and each one reached for their particular siddur, start saying some tehillim, start davening, whatever was going on. And inside their siddur, each of the 4 daughters had a small note. And on that note, it said, "Dearest children, I miss you already. Hamoki menachem eschem." The Rabbeinu Shalom, yes, has sent us to Golus. Yes, destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. But he misses us. He's crying for us. He wants us. Be'ez Hashem, in the next 24 hours, we're going to find him.